Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show, the place where being you is celebrated. And joy for me is an acronym for just one you. Well, I'm so delighted. Today is going to be a great day, but let's begin with the land acknowledgement. We are honored to be meeting on this land that many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island call home. We acknowledge and thank the original caretakers and knowledge keepers of this territory. They include the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And we also give thanks to all other Indigenous people, recorded and unrecorded, who have shared responsibility for this territory. We also acknowledge as inhabitants of these lands that inequity and discrimination continue to affect our BIPOC and 2S LGBTQI+ family. We therefore strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. Recognizing our ultimate oneness and acknowledging our reality, past and present, we commit to moving forward in a spirit of mutual cooperation because we are one. Well, I am so excited today. My guest today is Anna Harvey, and she's been on the show before, but we're going in a different direction today. She is the creator and facilitator of the coaching programs Work Life Clarity, Retirement Clarity, and most recently, Retire Solo. And she does this remarkable work about our passions and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And her and I work together. Well, in fact, we just finished our work together this week. We'll have a follow-up later. So we're going to talk to you about the passion test here today. So please just welcome the wonderful, remarkable, and beautiful Anna Harvey. Anna, so glad you're
Oh, that's quite the intro. Don't know if I can live up to all that.
Oh, I think you live up to it and lots more and lots more. Well, I'm so excited that you're back, and I'm really excited about this passion test that you do. And having done it with you, I'm just really excited about what it's been like for me so far. And who knows where it'll take me, but I'm really, really pleased with the work we've done. So can you just share a little bit about what it is and
Yeah,
people are
sure.
really
I'll sort of start way back in time, and then we can just move forward. I think
yes.
that there was a certain point in my life, as there is for many of us, where we just come to a state where we're thinking, okay, like now what? Now what? I was in confusion and in a muddle. Somehow I became aware of this thing called the passion test.
Mhm.
One thing led to another, and I decided that it was important for me to become certified in it. I wanted to be able to learn how to use this tool to the fullest that I can, and not only for myself, but to be able to do it also with other people.
Mhm.
So I went down to the States and became certified through I think it was, I don't know, 3 days in San Diego or something to become fully certified.
Yes.
And just amazing that time passes so quickly, because I realized that this tool that is the creation of Janet and Chris Atwood back in, I think it was 2008. So I was one of the early adopters in 2011, just sort of, came into it. And, time passes so quickly, but it's been the steady tool that I've used in everything that I've created in my coaching career. No matter what I've done, what program I've created, or how I've delivered it, I've always included the passion test. And before it became a tool in sort of a series of tools within my coaching programs, I was just doing that alone. I was just offering the passion test, and people would just come to see me. We would take them through the process, and they would end up with a sense of clarity that they had not previously known. And that's the power in this tool, and that's the book. I love this. I've always loved a small marketing slant, because anything that proclaims to be the effortless path, I don't know that I would go there. Life always involves some degree. Life isn't simple usually, right? So, but it's a powerful tool, and it brings great clarity.
Well, and I know that as we worked together and the questions that you were asking me and the way we were working through the process, I think the thing I found most valuable is getting a real clear sense of what is most important to me, what I am most passionate about, because it's easy to be kind of flippant and
Yes.
go, well, I think it's this, I think it's that, I think it's the other thing. But when you gave me the homework, I had to sit with it.
Yes.
And even after sitting with it for a couple of hours and doing some writing, I still came back and made some
Yeah.
changes
Yeah,
after
it
the
has to
time.
percolate, doesn't it? It just, and I think the reason for that, in my view, is because we're so primed to be using our rational mind, and I mean that's throughout all our early um, education, in through the whole system of education. When we get into our work world, all our rewards come from how we are applying our intellect, not how we're applying heart to something. Thankfully, I see that changing now. I see this more and more. I like to say more and more you see the F word appearing, which of course is feel. Never before, was there an allowance for how something felt or intuitive feeling. We didn't bring the passion piece to our life or to our careers or our work. So it's really normal to have this first attempt to be coming from our rational mind. But the truth is we cannot think our way into passion. We have to drop down into the heart center in order to be able to do that.
Well, and it's interesting because when you would remind me to do that piece, to go that little bit deeper, it was remarkable the clarity that was coming and how quickly of what I valued most. And I think, some of it was maybe a little bit surprising to me, but I think overall, part of what I realized is that, creating balance in our lives, what we're passionate about work wise, what we're passionate about play wise. I think that was another thing that really got anchored for me, is that we have to have balance. There has to be
Yeah.
playtime, there has to be work time. Um,
Yeah.
and if you're doing work you really love, which I'm fortunate to be
Yes.
doing, that makes all the difference in the world
Yeah.
too, because although it makes it harder to balance,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I love what I do, I can always work.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, when we're sort of entrepreneurial by nature,
Mhm.
which I think many in ministries are, you're in fact almost like running a business on your own, right?
Exactly, exactly.
It's that same entrepreneurial thing, and it's true. We typically bring much passion to our work. Therefore, it sustains us, and we're able to do more of it longer. I sometimes use another way of visualizing this as sort of inputs and outputs of energy. And what
Okay.
we want to be mindful of in life is that we've got enough input of energy that's fueling to us, as
Yeah.
opposed to the outputs of energy that drain us. And sometimes when I've taken people through this process, um, and I tend to elaborate the process because, of course, I believe there's such richness here. But we can find that there's things that actually drain us that we're afraid to speak of, because sometimes it can be a family member. It can be something that is not supposed to, in quotes, right? Not supposed to drain us, and yet it does. And so we need to be honest and look with clear mind and clear heart and say, is this person, is this situation draining me or fueling me? Then, to your point, on balance, then what we want to have is more inputs of energy, of good energy, of joy, since we're
Yeah.
on the joy show,
Yeah.
more inputs of joy than we do of the outputs of energy that's draining us.
Yeah, I think sometimes we don't even realize that we're being drained by something. Like I remember going to a meditation circle one time, and I was so excited to go. And as soon as I arrived there, my whole body was in discomfort.
Yes.
And and at the time, I just dealt with it and thought, "Oh, this is horrible." And it was like the longest hour ever. It felt like days. And when I what I've come to realize is the body tells us
Ah,
when it's time to not be somewhere, or if something isn't good energy for us. I
yeah.
think we, need to listen to that as well. And part of getting out of our heads, because we've all got that, well, I should do this, or I should do that, or I should be the other thing. And instead go into our heart space and what really brings me alive.
Yep. Yeah. I'm so glad you gave that example. It gives me an opportunity to talk about one of one of the elements of doing this passion work is to recognize that in any moment in time, we are in a state of either expansion or contraction. And those are the two words that we use to describe that exact sense that you had. So in that moment, when you walked into that meditation, what
Yeah.
you're describing is the body going into contraction then, right? And it literally physiologically contracts, right? And if the circumstance is strong enough, we find, how many times have we said my stomach is in knots, right? We tend to tense, our face contracts or goes like this, right? Like we're contracting that way. The blood vessels actually contract. Everything comes
Yeah.
into that tightened state. And what we don't want to do in life is have so much of that becomes our norm. And that happens really, really easily. Now, thankfully, we're getting more and more science and research that says actually, gee, all this stuff that oftentimes is labeled with woo woo, which just drives me crazy. Um, Now, the research and science is starting to say, oh, there might be something there to this,
Yeah.
right? But
There's
the
now
opposite
scientific proof.
is that beautiful expanded state where, our heart's beating beautifully, we're calm, we're relaxed. We have the highest IQ and the highest EQ ever when we're in this beautiful state of expansion. So that's where we want to be hanging out. And just as you said, in that moment that you walked in that moment, you knew whether you were expanded or contracted. In this moment that you and I are sitting here, we
Yeah.
know in our bodies physiologically, right, where we are right now. Are we
Oh,
feeling more
yeah.
expanded or contracted? Like for me, I'm in major expansion because I love doing this. I love talking about passion and heart and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, hanging out with you, this is all good stuff.
It's good stuff. Yeah, I feel the same thing. Anytime I'm doing one of these shows, anytime I'm speaking to a crowd, working one-on-one with somebody, teaching, it's like I'm in major expansion.
Yeah,
And occasionally we get in with somebody, and I remember a friend of mine who used to do muscle testing.
yeah,
That so she would do this thing where she'd be speaking to a group of people and she'd grab a couple of people randomly from the audience and she'd take one person out in the hall and give them some directions, and then the two of them would come back, so nobody knew what was going on except the speaker and that person. The person who remained in the room would then stand beside the one who had gotten the instructions, and the speaker would then say, okay, think of the most horrific thing ever.
yeah,
And then they would muscle test the person who had stayed in the room. So they didn't know anything. And she was just like, in fact, she didn't tell them what it was. She said, okay, scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. So scenario A is, the most horrific thing you can imagine. So they muscle test the person standing beside them and their arm has no strength. And then she asked scenario B, and this is like the best day ever, and their arm is rock solid. And then the other one is just think of nothing, like just
yeah,
neutral. And then the arm, was solid, but it
yeah,
was, had some
yeah.
movement. And when I think about that, and we teach that there's only one thing going on, we're all one part of it. That to me illustrated most powerfully the impact that it has when we are in community with someone else.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that to me is also linked to this heart space versus the mind space, right? Where the
yes,
mind space is so individualized. It's so personal, right? When we drop into heart, we're much more the universal. We are
Mhm.
the we are the all. We are the one when we are in this space, right? But
Yeah.
the mind, the ego, fights to say, wait a minute, I'm unique and you are different than me. I don't know whether you're good or you're bad, but you're different. Like you become other, as
You become a
opposed to when we're all this way, which I would say this, in my hallucination of Jesus would have been the person who was so hard all the time, was able to do that all the time in no artificial way whatsoever, right? But the universal heart. So this is for us humans, in all our glorious humanity with all our flaws and everything, but this process of at least starting to understand there is a difference between head and heart, and what can I do to be thinking about wrong word, feeling heart, and recognizing my body too is having that different experience when I'm heart, when I'm joy, when I'm fulfilled.
Yeah, I think sometimes we've kind of forgotten the power of that heart space. And I know I haven't studied it much, but heart math,
Yes.
where they've done a lot of work around the heart, and the heart holds memory.
Mm,
I think, a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of that, but I remember reading a book by a transplant surgeon,
yes.
and he talked about when he would transplant a heart, the recipient, their maybe their food choices, their memories of things, all of this, their likes and dislikes, things like that would change with
Yes.
that new heart.
Yeah.
And we sort of dismiss, like, oh, it's the brain that holds it all. I don't think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was wonderful that that switch came, that in time, that made us aware of all the power of the brain. I mean, we can't make that wrong because it's brought us
Yeah.
our science. It
Mhm.
plays a valuable role in
Yeah.
this earthly existence.
Yeah.
The
Both
challenge
hands.
is we've revered it. We allowed it to supersede anything heart and emotional, right? Now I think we're coming back into a more balanced way.
Balance state. Yeah.
We start to hear things about conscious leadership, leaders that actually lead from and include heart. So we're seeing I always say, anything that will positively affect the bottom line all of a sudden gets a thumbs up, right? So we start to realize that employees that we work with too, they're not just automations. They have feelings, that the more a company can allow for the ups and downs that an employee goes through, the better they are in the end in terms of productivity, right? So we're
Exactly.
we're, we're moving the needle, which is really great. But I love that you talked about that the heart transplant one too. I mean, that was mind blowing to me when I read that as well.
Yeah, I think, and I know I read something about a child that was given a heart of another child, and the heart they were given was of a murder victim, and they started having dreams about the murder.
Yeah.
It's like, we have no idea.
That's the bottom line. And that's the end of the show. We've got
I
no.
know nothing. I know
What a glorious blank slate we are.
But there's kind of a richness in that too,
Yeah,
is that if I can
totally.
come to each moment as teachable,
Yes.
right? With that
Yeah.
empty space that says, so share with me, tell me something
Yeah.
new,
Yeah.
help me to see a new perspective.
Yeah.
I think when we're teachable, that's where expansion really
Oh,
lives.
yeah. Yeah. Because there's an openness that we need to be. I believe that helps us a great deal if we can hold that open mindset, that curiosity mindset. It allows, in my experience of doing this work with people over now, I don't know, certainly more than a decade.
Yeah,
That openness allows them to be curious enough to courageously step forward into doing this kind of passion work, because they know that what what they've been doing purely out of mind hasn't got them the fulfillment that they were looking for in life or in career, in their partnerships, in whatever, right? Um, and it's missing. So that's why the quest becomes, okay, so what am I missing here? And often it's missing the heart piece. It's missing that emotive feeling, expanded state.
Well, and even I've found too that, when I'm praying with people, I want to know what they want, like what's the purpose of the prayer. But the second thing I want to know is how would you feel if it was accomplished?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that feeling I can have it right now?
Yeah. 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 That's another huge insight to realize that in any moment we can shift, right? We tend to think the reality that's before us is stamped in cement, and yet it's not. It's perspective. Whatever's before us can shift when we take an active part in our lives and do that shifting. And whether I shift it into something that I would call better, or whether I worsen it for myself, that power is totally mine, right? I can go down a spiral of negativity.
And we do sometimes.
And don't we just do that? Yeah. There's nothing like a good wallow, I always say.
I know. It's like me on my way here to do this show, and I'm running late, and immediately I'm like,
Yes.
I don't like being late. Late to me is
Yep.
not really an option. And I'm running late going, oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Isn't it wonderful just to watch the what you call the cacophony of, I don't know if that's the right word, of voices and sounds and energies that we're outputting in that moment, right? And nothing, this is part of what the passion test is all about, is saying, where you put your attention is vitally important. So when we focus on, oh my heavens, I'm late. And I mean, haven't we all done that? I remember, getting a run in my pantyhose way back in time when I was wearing it. And then you'd spill a coffee, then I'd be late, and it was just like everything kept magnifying, but we can do that the other way around too.
Well, we could. And of course, when we magnify when something's wrong, it's like it's bad, it's terrible, it's awful, it's horrible, it's the worst thing imaginable. Nothing could be worse than this. And we blow it way out of proportion.
Oh, I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And
should
some of us
blow
are
the
masters at that.
positive out of proportion.
Yes.
Right?
That's just it. Like, we don't realize, wait a minute, if I've got this capacity in me to do this fabulous magnification, why don't I try using it in this direction, right? Why don't I magnify, all that I can be passionate about, or that I want in my life, or that I, can create in my life.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I loved about the passion test.
Yeah.
Is it helped me to see, really where my values line up,
Yes.
which, as I look at it, doesn't really surprise me.
Yes.
But the clarity of that was really, really helpful. And then as I move forward, because I've got these little cards that
Oh, I know. I know. I've got mine too, just to show you, like, mine's dated 2011. That's when I did mine. And, I wouldn't change a thing on mine. That's how accurate it was for me.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because I have a couple of these. I have two handy here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Green and pink.
Yeah.
Yellow is on my nightstand in my bedroom. And I've got an orange one in my living room on the coffee table. Because I want to be able to look at it on the regular. And it's helped me to just kind of realign what I want to do and where I want to go. So as a result of doing this with you, I sat down yesterday, I think it was, and I wrote out a page of, what does my new experience really look like? And so that was really helpful to go, what is it that I'm imagining that I really want to see in my life and in my world and in my work? And so that was really, and it was sparked by this. This is what got me kind of moving in that direction to go, wait a minute, what is it you really want? And what are you waiting for?
Yeah. Oh, just love that. Well, you're clearly a star student here because that's actually, it wasn't one of the ones I shared with you as something that you could do with this. But what
Yeah.
you basically did there is you wrote a passion page. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that you can do is once we've, gone through the process and you've ended up with these top 5 things that you say you are passionate about,
Yeah.
right? Then the way to deepen that experience is again by handwriting, because we know the value of handwriting over
Yeah.
typing on a keyboard. So we
Yeah.
handwrite out a page and do exactly what you actually did and say, okay, I have expressed this. What does that actually look like and feel like for
Yeah.
me? And you keep going deeper into these rich feelings because it makes it more alive.
Yeah.
That's one other way you're triggering your brain, right? You're helping to imprint that on your brain.
I love it.
So you're just like ahead of the game here. Look at you.
That's me racing to the front of the class. That
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
easy. I was the only student in the class, so
Yeah, you were. Yes, it was very
go to the
private.
front.
Very private. I think we should mention that you're showing your card that you wrote out in those different colors, and I just showed mine. And by way of some context for that, the process of going through this and identifying that these things in this moment, I always clarify in this moment, these 5 things are most passionate to me. What we want to do is keep that front of mind, top of mind, in order to live it and then be proving it or disproving it.
Yes.
I think that we don't want to waste valuable time and effort and heart following something that we've claimed that we're passionate about, and in reality we're not. We deked ourselves out. We've given ourselves a should. My own experience actually doing this with this process gave me that very live experience, because on my first time through with this card and process, I ended up one of my top 5 passions, which just makes me giggle out loud now. Top 5 passions was to be physically fit, to move my body. I think you like that type of thing, right? Going to a gym. I've got a friend who is in her glory when she's got a sweat on her arms. That is so not me. It is like so not me. And yet, funnily enough, I put it on this passion card. But in trying to live it and keeping it top of mind by having those colored cards in front of me in various places in my home, I thought, this is not what I am passionate about. So I took it off the list. And then then I was down to 4 passions, which then gave me space to add one. And so what I added was being part of a spiritually like-minded community. And that is like so much me.
Yeah, exactly. That's more top of mind for you.
Totally. That's what that really juices me incredibly. So
Well,
good
that's
process.
so, yeah, it's so important because it is something that we have to be living, right? It has to be part of that life process. Here's what makes my heart sing.
Yes.
Like when somebody asks me to do something like this, like I'm doing a show tomorrow morning on here called Ministers Talking Shit. I got asked last night, can you co-host this? I'm like, yes. It's so easy to say yes to, because I am so passionate about these subjects, about creating a remarkable life. I know everybody can, like we have within us this ability, but we often cannot see the forest for the trees.
Yep.
And we're in the middle of it and we're judging or criticizing ourselves. And so we're missing the real juice.
Yep.
So now, before we go on any further, we're going to take a little commercial break here and, hear from our sponsors and our, funders and everybody else on the New Thought Media Network who keeps us alive and moving. And you're watching The Joy Show with Barbara Jean. And I'm here with my remarkable guest, Anna Harvey. And we're going to be back in just a moment. So don't go away.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Home Center for Spiritual Living La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Welcome back to the Joy Show, and we're talking about passion today, and specifically the passion test that Anna Harvey is so good at facilitating.
Well, it's easy to be good at something that brings you joy, and I mean, you just said that yourself, right? About hosting the program tomorrow that you're going to be doing or whenever. Yeah, so it's easy to be good at it, and that's part of what I encourage people to try living into these passions that they've identified, because we find that we are naturally good at them because they resonate so deeply within us. We can't almost not be good at them.
Yeah, and it seems to come from sort of those natural abilities that sometimes we label as, oh, well, that's easy. Anybody could do that. So that's not valuable.
Yeah.
And the reason it's easy for us is because it's our gift.
Yes.
And it may not be the other person's gift. So.
Yeah, that's so true. And we don't, because it's easy for us, or just so, just sort of springs out of us, we tend to devalue it because it is our experience that it's easy. And we often think, well, can't everybody do that? And yet in reality, they can't, right? Because it's ours. It's exactly what you said, like it's ours to do. So yes, yeah. It's a fascinating process. And sometimes people, get stuck when they've come to work with me and they say, but I don't know, I can't get there. And the workaround for that is to start a list of what you don't want. And people can always write a list about what they don't want in life, like that, right? Yeah. So there's never a time when I've not been able to work with someone because of that. All of us can say, oh man, I sure don't want that. Then we just say, okay, well, what would the opposite of that look like?
Well, I found that in my prayer work as well. Like somebody will come with me and say, I can't get it. I can't get work. There's no jobs. They'll go in their story, right? And I'll be asking, what do you want? Well, I don't know. I don't, and the question or the statement, I don't know, is one that always makes me kind of giggle, because we know a lot more about ourselves than we suggest in those conversations. But I'll sit back and say to somebody, if you knew what the answer was, what would it be?
Yeah.
People don't like that. But what's fascinating is most often when I say it, about right after they go, well, don't say that. And then they'll go, you'll see the light go on. They'll go, oh, maybe this.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that speaks to, again, it's the blessing of our brain in a way that it always wants to be right. So if we don't know the answer, we're not even going to attempt to go there. So what you're doing is giving them a beautiful space of permission. So, oh, great. So you don't know. What could it look like if you did know?
Yeah, if you
So
did know.
it's that
Yeah,
openness factor again, right? Being open.
it really is. It
Yeah.
really is. I just had this idea to share a poem. I wrote this poem back when I was just getting into this teaching in a really big way and had gone through many traumas in my life before I had that shift in consciousness where I could do it differently. So I wrote this poem, and I don't know why I want to share it now, but I'm
Oh, I'm
going to.
glad. Go for it. I'd love to hear it.
And interestingly, when I opened up my Word document, it was right there, which it
Ooh.
never is when I go to look for it because I wrote it almost 30 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Do share. Do share.
It's called I See.
Mm.
I see a warm and loving soul filled with kindness, beauty to behold, and yet it is denied. I see strength beneath the shell, and yet weakness prevails. I see so much of what must be, and yet I try to communicate the view I hold, and it's disbelieved. I see you, friend, with loving eyes, the eyes that cannot lie. I see you, friend, powerful and strong. I see you, friend, beautiful and kind. I see you, friend, warm and true. Why is it you cannot see it too? I see the story of lives long past, but what can they mean? History is to be viewed, remembered. We learn from history too. I see the pain of dreams bypassed. I see the wishes that dwindle to ash. I see the hopes you no longer believe. The answer, my friend, is in your eyes. If only you could face your fear and see. The greatest fear of all humankind is the fear of what will set us free. I see you, my friend, with loving eyes, the eyes that cannot lie. Turn your sight within and view with loving eyes. You too will see the beauty that lies within you.
Wow. How does that feel for you now when you read it all these years?
When I wrote it, I didn't even really recognize that I was speaking to me. But in retrospect, it was like two parts of me. It's like I'm living in this pain and dysfunction and there's a part of me going, why can't you see the truth? Why
Yeah.
can't you see
Yeah.
through all that to what's really inside of you? And that's kind of getting out of the head space and into the heart space, shifting the stories people told us about ourselves when we were little, and coming up with a new reality. Who am I really?
Yeah.
And that poem took, I don't know, 5 minutes to write,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I really think what you've captured there would be true for any of us,
Yeah.
walking the path, because we all, there's such a desire. We hear this all the time, the authentic self, right? I just want to be my authentic self. I want a partner who can really see me. It's all, we just so want to be seen for the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I hear in that beautiful piece. Boy, I would encourage you to put that out there in the world somehow.
Well, I sort of just did on this, so
I
I'll have to
know.
put
Well,
somewhere else.
I think that's really a beautiful piece, and would speak to anyone.
Yeah, it sort of
They,
speaks to the current, because I think for most of us, we're looking for answers out here,
oh,
but all of them are in here.
exactly.
And I mean, it took me years to figure out. I wrote this poem and I kind of liked it and I saved it,
Yeah.
but it didn't
Yeah.
mean much to me back then. It means a lot
Yeah.
more to me today.
Yeah. 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 I mean, everything you're saying is just so true and so real, right? We would far rather expend a ton of energy and effort looking outside of ourselves, because it's so frightening to come in. It's a shorter journey in, but it seems to be more perilous, more frightening to us to come in. And, I think this passion test is a tool, one single tool that helps us journey a little bit inward to find an answer. When I actually developed the coaching piece, is what I did is I overlaid the passion test with doing values work and sort of personality work to try and make it very clear to the client the alignment that is there in all of these tools that does speak to who they are. So no matter how you slice it, we are who we are, right? No matter what lens we use, how we come at it. So it's that constant striving to be all that we are, vulnerably, openly, and trust that we'll be accepted for that.
I think, and I think the reason that it is so hard, because it is very vulnerable to sort of go into that truth and then live from there. And what's interesting is the reason I think it's so hard is because the conditioning that we got in those first 7 years, mom said this, dad said that, siblings said this, teacher said that, the media's doing this. All of this messaging has suggested to us that we're kind of bad.
Yeah, we're not good enough. Certainly, there's improvement needed here. Lots of places improvement is needed. And that's we always feel we're falling short. I agree with you 100%. We're immersed in that. And
our parents are God.
Yeah,
right. They see all, they know all, and they're everywhere present. Every time I do something wrong,
they do have eyes in the back of their head. Yes.
It's like, what? I can't do. I learned very early on I'm a terrible liar, because every time I tried to lie to my parents about something, they knew.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's really true when we do stop to consider how we are so steeped in that messaging of falling short. And it's absolutely starts with family of origin, and in whatever way we know family of origin, but it starts there. And then even when you go to school, I mean, you get very clear messaging, at least when I went to school. Now I qualify that. When I went to school, very clear messaging, especially around gender, what boys could do, what women or girls could do.
Still going on.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know. I'd like to think it's not, but yeah, I know. But that messaging is there too, right? And then we grow up in the outside world. We start careers. Again, we get very clear guidance on what our boss wants to see and how we should show up there, right? So all of that continual molding of an inauthentic self. It's a huge courage journey.
The inauthentic self is the celebrated.
Yes.
Be phony, put on a mask, hide. That's the messaging.
Yeah.
Who you are is no good. Here, be this person. And I heard recently, and I wish I could remember where I heard it, but comparison is leads to despair. Yeah. So if I'm going, oh man, I wish I had hair coloring. I love that. Because I would love to have beautiful silvery white hair. That's not what I have right now, obviously. And it's probably not going to get there because it's very slowly turning gray, but it's not turning that beautiful whitey silvery color. So, I could sit back and say, but that's what I want. I can make myself miserable wanting to be you, but you're already taken.
Yeah. And again, that's just such a hard, difficult message for us to get. And I'm glad that we're coming into a time now that there's, I think the science and the heart piece are starting to come together. So, the comparison thing is really challenging. We are always, I think most of us, well, I'll speak for myself. because that one I do know for sure, I come into that space of comparison, right? Comparing. So I think she's further ahead than I am. She does this better than I do. He does this in such a way I'd love to be able to do. So I'm constantly comparing. And I now know that that's also a mechanism of the brain. The brain likes to keep things really simple and organized so it can stay safe. So comparison really helps it do that, right? A little file system. It knows exactly where to put everybody. So we're coming against a natural brain tendency to do that. So I always think there's great compassion needed in this work to find our authentic self, because it's brave work. It really is brave work, which of course, Brene Brown, thank heavens, she's really cracked that, right? She's nailed it. She said, this is brave work.
Well, she dumped herself into the middle of it.
Holy moly. Yeah.
Sometimes you get out front and center to do something. The real you sort of pops out, and it's like you can't take it back.
Yeah, it's really true. It's fun to watch that sort of early TED talk that she did and to think, wow, that just really, that was like an oops. It just sort of whoosh, right? Brought her into this incredible space.
Vulnerability, right? Like, that's, and I think we're starting to see that more and more in the world at large, where people are standing up and saying, this is who I really am.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I think, there's an element of world peace there too, because right now, my thought about why we war and fight so much is because we are being protective, because we are being in that I space of only intellect. And what do I need? It's very closed as opposed to the open and the all. Like, what is the good of the all? What is the good of the planet? What can I do in that space? So I think there is movement in that direction. I just hope it happens quickly.
Well, and on Spirit Cafe, which we did on Wednesday, we talked about, in fact, I was interviewed in our Wednesday show. And the interview was about, from a minister's perspective, how do we resolve all that's going on in the world and find a way to come to peace? And what is that, what is that process? So it was an interesting conversation, because you can't make light of what's happening right now. There's like 110 wars going on in the world. And of course, we know what's happening with Ukraine and Russia and what's happening with Israel and Hamas. And so when we look at these things, it's really easy to take a deep dive into the darkness. And pick sides and decide who's right and who's wrong. But the thing is, we don't know. We have no way of knowing what's right and what's wrong. What we can do, though, is accept that both and. So everybody has their perspective. Everybody is playing a part, and everybody's life matters. So until we can come to a place of accepting that because you draw a breath, you are part of me. That idea of oneness hasn't really caught on yet globally, but I'm holding that one day it will.
Well, I mean, as we know, we can not only do that in our own immediate world.
Exactly.
Before we try to say, well, why isn't it working in Gaza? Because we can't get that within our own family unit. We can't get that within our congregations. Like it's easy. Yeah, like it's so easy to see why it's not. Why they can't do it. It's because we can't do it, right? We have to.
We're not doing it.
Yeah, that's the only thing. One of my passions, my second passion on my list, is to be mentored by masters. And one of the mentor women in my life, she has said to me that, she has one focus every day, that is to, get up and be in the world in a high frequency that doesn't buy into and become part of the lower frequencies that so much of the world really operates on, right? So to be in the state of acceptance and love and authenticity and all of those things. And that's a day's work, just to stay in that space and hold that for myself is a big doing, but a necessary one, I think.
And I think as we do it more and more, it gets easier and
Yeah,
easier. You
absolutely.
know?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every day that we can be respectful and kind and compassionate with ourself, where we can give up the judgment, the criticism
Yeah.
of how we've shown up. I made a terrible mistake last week. I did a funeral service and I announced the funeral was beautiful. It was heart wrenching because the wife died like 6 weeks ago, and then the husband died
Yeah.
a week and a half ago. And it's like the family's going through the death of their parents, and it's huge. And when I was introducing the granddaughter to share the reading she was going to do, I said her name wrong.
Mhm.
And when I realized I had done that, I really got on myself.
Uh,
It's, the family's in trauma, and then you go and say her name wrong. And it's, and it's funny because I checked my notes, and yes, I'd written it correctly. And
yeah.
her name is Julia, and I said Julie.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, it really took me some time to forgive that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And most people wouldn't do that.
yeah,
So, this is the beautiful part of your path, right? You're grounded really well in good spiritual practices and teachings. You know so much about this and necessity to sort of look at it honestly and to turn it.
yeah.
But many people wouldn't. They would be beating themselves up weeks later,
But
right?
that doesn't do anything because you can't change the
I know,
past.
I know, I know. Yeah,
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 the only
it's
thing I could do is,
yeah,
her mom was the one who hired me, and when she told me, I emailed her back and I said I checked the notes, I'd spelled it correctly. I said, "This is inexcusable. I am so sorry. I'm really shocked that I did that, and please forgive me."
yeah,
That's
yep,
all I could that's
yeah,
all I could do. There's no defense for it. I made a mistake. I made a mistake.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think sometimes that's where we get confused is immediately we want to defend and excuse ourselves from our responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can just take responsibility and swallow that rather large pill of oops,
Yeah.
I did it
Yeah.
wrong. Um, because we like to think we're perfect. And
Yes.
really we're created perfect, whole, and complete.
Yeah.
And we're having a human experience, and most of us have made mistakes.
Ah,
Uh,
most? I would say all. I think
more than once.
we're good on the all there.
Yeah, we can probably generalize that one. We've all made mistakes. Her mom was very gracious and was
I would hope.
lovely about it. But I'm really glad she told me
Yeah.
so that we could have that
Yeah,
connection. But it's sometimes things happen, and
of course.
we're doing the best we can. And if we can find a way to be kinder with ourselves, it would be easier to be kinder to others.
Yeah. I got nothing to add to that. That is beautifully said and so true, right? And yet that's where unfortunately we're our harshest critic.
Oh man,
Yeah,
are we
yeah,
ever?
which is
We
tough.
ever?
Somebody said to me once that we're both our harshest critic and our most lenient ally. So when I
Mm.
became aware of that, I recognized that in myself too, where I can be self-critical. I can play that role really well. And when it comes to holding my feet to the fire to do something, I'm also the one who says, "Oh no, that's fine. You've got this.
Oh,
You can let that go." I let myself off the hook on that way. So it's interesting to see myself dancing. These two realms. I think, okay, there must be a better middle path
it's
here.
the dance of life.
Yeah.
Part of my website, I talk about my dance with the universe because I really feel like my life has been a dance with this cosmic force. And some days it's been this beautiful, lovely ballet. And other times it's been, this slamming, I don't know, kind of maybe more hip hop kind of type thing where it's got more forced movement. But I think everything has been a dance, which has brought me to now. And all of this stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly, has created this woman. And
Yes.
It's like, can I just love and accept her and value the journey that I've walked? And I think that's part of the challenge we're faced with most often, is how do we value our personal path?
Yes. Yep.
Not always the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, you're right. Because it brings us back into that comparison. Her path is better than mine. Hers is more spiritual than mine. Hers is more affluent than mine. Like it's that comparison thing, right? That comes back again. So my path is very, that's where I think I can easily go for sure.
Yeah.
Dancing. I love that.
My website.
I love the dancing with the universe, though. Beautiful. That analogy really works for me.
Yeah.
I really like it. I can, in my own life, I only once was partnered at just a community dance with a young man, because at the time I was a young woman. And boy, did he ever know how to dance. And it was effortless to follow him. Effortless. And I think that's like when we're with spirit, we're so aligned with spirit in the universe, when we just allow and follow, it just really works.
Effortless.
That's effortless. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, we're down to our last 4 minutes. Can you believe it? It's so quick.
No.
So what is the most important thing you would like to say to the audience as we close out today? What would you like to leave them with?
The most important thing, I think the most important thing is to be aware of heart, to be aware of your passion itself, to know that you are more than mind. That would probably be the biggest one.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. That's perfect. And I think I would like to say that being vulnerable is our superpower.
Nice.
So allow yourself to go there day by day and moment by moment.
Love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, we have put on here your website, I believe, has been marked across here a couple times, retiresolo.ca. So everybody go check out retiresolo.ca, check out my website, barbarajean.ca. I have to think about that. Go to the Center for Spiritual Living is cslonthelake.com. And just know that when you're in these surroundings, who you are is definitely enough. We love and appreciate you. Anna, I love and appreciate you. Thank you so much for saying yes again.
Yes. Yes. I'll always say yes to you. I promise.
God bless you. And thank you for sharing this tool with me. I've found it absolutely invaluable. And I'm going to write a testimonial and send to you, because I think people need to get into this and give this a try. It really is powerful. So thank you. Thank you, Deja, for being our producer today. As always, you're the genius behind the scene. And I'm just grateful. And I'm grateful to the New Thought Media Network for this platform. So thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Same time, same channel, having interesting conversations with remarkable individuals. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You're watching The Joy Show, and this is the New Thought Media Network. Bye for now.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.